Welcome back, gentlefolk and rapscallions of all persuasions. I made it into Wave 4 of registration, and I'm going to Dragonsteel Nexus 2025. So you know what that means. It's time for me to make another costume. And as of the time of filming, they have not announced what the World Hopper Ball theme is going to be for this year. If I had to guess, it would be Scadrial, which is why I broke out my Soother earrings and my Mistborn vial from my jewelry stash to make this video. I filmed myself talking through everything that I would need to do to make a world-accurate cosplay for Vin. And then I had to have a long think to myself about it because there is just no way that I can pack up a world-accurate Mistborn Era 1 ball gown into a suitcase, multiple suitcases, and bring it on a plane to Salt Lake City. There's just no way that I can fit 6 starched petticoats in the amount of luggage space that I have, and also bring the Hava that I made for last year, which the making of is the 3rd most viewed video on my channel, and in the time it took to edit this video, it has been bumped down to 5th. So thank you so much for all of you who supported me and watched that video and became subscribers, because you saw me walking around the con, and I told you about my YouTube channel. Everything helps when your channel is the size of mine, and I can't thank you all enough for being here and giving me the views and giving me the engagement. So thank you so, so much. I am deeply conflicted over what I want to do for my cosplay this year, because not only do I want to do a Mistborn Era 1 ball gown, I also want to do other cosplays that involve big heckin' dresses, like Kaylee's cake dress from Firefly. So if I'm going to go to the trouble to make the understructure for this dress, I want to get as much mileage out of it as I can. Do I want to do a couple's cosplay with my boyfriend as Vin and Elend? Yes, I do. Is black one of my best colors? No, it is not. And that is Vin's signature color that she's known for. She's also shown wearing blue, wearing red. She wears white dresses on more than one occasion, but I also feel like if I make a white ball gown, it's going to look too much like a wedding dress and less like a Mistborn cosplay. When I did my cosplay for Nexus 2024, I wasn't cosplaying any specific character. I made a green Hava because if I did blue, everyone would have guessed I was cosplaying Shallan, and that's not specifically what I was going for. So I don't necessarily have to be Vin, but also then what is my boyfriend going to dress up as that day? So my thought is, because the Hava that I made was very much Slytherin coded, and I'm a Slytherin who masks as a Ravenclaw, I have a bronze skirt that I could use to make into a sort of Ravenclaw themed ball gown dress. That could be fun. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to order a plastic hoop skirt off of Amazon to give the volume to the dress, put some sort of petticoat situation on top of it. I will probably make a different petticoat from the same one that I used to make my Hava underskirt, and I'll actually film it this time because my underskirt was very much a draw the rest of the owl, and I'm still sorry about that. But then I can also reuse that hoop and that petticoat down the line in the future when I make Kaylee's cake dress, which I've been wanting to do for about 20 years at this point. So just to talk through a little bit of what would go into making a world-accurate dress for Vin. Hoop skirts are never mentioned in Mistborn Era 1, and even if they were, Vin would not be caught dead wearing a steel cage crinoline. She just wouldn't. The problem with this is that Vin also would not have had a metal busk in her corset. There would have been no steel bones in her corset, and even the grommets that allow you to tight lace down would not have been in any of the apparel that she would have worn, because if she didn't think of it, Kelsier definitely would, which she's being outfitted by a bunch of men, and I fully blame that for why she is not as well-dressed as some of the other women at the balls, beyond the fact that she is portraying a country noble and anything can be hand-waved away that she is not from Luthadel. I specifically think that if Mare was there, which Kelsier even laments that if Mare were there to teach Vin, things would be going a lot better. If Mare were there, Vin absolutely would have had bust and hip padding in her corset, and she would have worn the dresses a lot better and fit in a little bit better, and her confidence would have been higher from the outset than it was. But I digress. So the fact that Vin would have had to have hand-sewn eyelets, she wouldn't have been able to get that tight-laced figure that someone like Shan Alariel would have. And given how petite and thin Vin is, she probably couldn't tight-lace very much even if she wanted to. But also, the high nobility in Mistborn Era 1 are already portrayed as wearing metal on their person because they are so confident and or arrogant that people are not going to attack them, that they could probably get away with something like a hoop skirt, like having those metal bones and grommets in their corsets so that they can get that fashionable shape. We know that whales exist on Scadrial. At least they do in Era 2. I'm guessing that they're there in Era 1 as well, because I don't think the ocean life would have been overly affected by the events that created the ash mounts. Maybe they were, because we know that the planet was a lot warmer during Era 1 than it is during Era 2. And where I'm getting this is specifically the whale ivory that is mentioned at the end of Alloy of Law. So I was like, aha, we have whales. We can have whalebone supports and corsets. Okay, we're on the same page. Because the way I justified it for Roshar is all of the creatures have chitin, and so chitin is a very similar texture that you would get from something like baleen that you would use to stiffen a corset, so that at least makes sense. And I could justify it as the hoop skirt with the plastic in it is a parallel to whalebone, because whalebone is potentially used as a stiffener for hoop skirts. However, that may have been prohibitively expensive, and now we're just speculating on how much a thieving crew spent on Vin's underwear. So, do with that information what you will. As far as the foundations for the dress go, in other words, Erin talks about her underwear on the internet again, I will probably wear a pair of combinations because that is one of the things that I'm most comfortable in, and that would have been the layer right next to the skin. That means that your corset is not pressed right up against your flesh. Very uncomfortable, also getting body oils onto something that cannot be easily laundered. And then over top of that, I don't think I'll wear a corset cover for a Scadrial dress the way that I did for my Hava, simply because of the way that the bodice is going to be differently structured. My Hava was very sleek and needed the corset cover to kind of smooth everything out, versus a Scadrial ball gown is probably going to have some structure built into the bodice itself. There's probably going to be bones in the bodice, and so that's going to float a little bit more easily over the corset than my Hava would, and also it's going to be made of probably a more structured fabric in that way, and it's not going to drape as much as the viscose satin of my Hava would. That being said, I am probably going to use the same corset that I wore for my Hava, because I don't really want to have to pack more things than I need to. And if I can get the same mileage out of the same corset, that's going to be great. Is it going to be an ideal shape? No. Do I have time to make a corset? Also, no. This is one of the things that I discussed when I was making my Hava cosplay, was whether or not I wanted to try and make my first corset, and I really don't think that I do right now, because I'm having enough trouble trying to decide which petticoat that I'm going to do, and I don't need the added hassle of trying to figure out something that is so fitted and structural as a corset. I'm sure that once I finally do make a corset, I will kick myself for how long it took me, because it's going to fit better than the fast fashion corset that I'm going to be wearing, but also I have to pick my battles with the time that I have. Again, this is just the planning video. I will be filming my progress as I go through, but since I haven't bought any fabric yet, I am throwing it out to you guys. What should I do? Should I make a Vin cosplay? Should I make something that is a Scadrial Era 1 ball gown that is not specifically anyone in particular from the series? Should I do all Rianne and buy a blonde wig, because I would have to buy a black wig to be Vin? Let me know down in the comments before I need to order the fabric to make this in the next 3-4 months. Click the video that's popping up on your screen right now. Do all those delicious things that feed the almighty algorithm. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye!